Good morning, classmates. Good morning, ma'am. We are the Group 5, and we are here to present our report all about cultural relativism. Culture is one of the human dimensions. It shapes the mind, beliefs, and morals of individuals in a society. Culture is a word that we often came across. Each and every one of us is part of the culture, and sometimes we are intrigued by it. So, what exactly is it then? It is what we believe and what we usually or traditionally do. The world is wide and huge. Part of what makes the world interesting is that it is home to different groups of people and develop their own unique outlook on how to survive and thrive. These differences led people to view life differently and live completely different lifestyle.
A German-American anthropologist, Franz Boas, first articulated this in 1887. Civilization is not something absolute, but it is relative, and our ideas and conceptions are true only so far as our civilization goes. Boas believed that the sweep of cultures to be found in connection with any subspecies is so vast, meaning great extent or quantity, and pervasive, spreading widely throughout an area or group of people, that there cannot be a relationship between culture and race. However, the first use of the term cultural relativism was philosopher and social theorist Alan Locke in 1924. It is also recorded in the Oxford English Dictionary.
Cultural relativism explains why one behavior or practice is completely acceptable by a particular group of people, while it is taboo in another. It refers to the idea that values, knowledge, and behavior of people must be understood within its own cultural context and not by the standards of other cultures. Culture is also about the clothes we wear, the language we speak, and the foods we eat. Culture is our customs, our beliefs, and our values. It is part and parcel of our religious beliefs, superstitions, philosophy, and mythology. Yung culture din kasi is all about kung saang group of people ka nakabilang. Like, religions, iba't iba yan ng iba't iba ng religions since madami mga religions sa mundo. Madami kang pagpipilian at maraming iba't ibang paniniwala sa isang religion. Sinasabi sa cultural relativism na hindi tayo dapat dumepende or yung action natin, hindi natin dapat idepende sa ibang culture kasi iba yung paniniwala nila sa atin kaya hindi natin kailangang i-compare kung ganito, meaning natin na judge tayo ganun. Hindi, iba kasi sila ng paniniwala and sa tingin ko, dapat lahat tayo makaintindi na hindi tayo pare-parehas ng paniniwala at ng culture. Dapat maintindihan natin na may iba't iba tayong cultural context na iba sa standards ng ibang culture. One of the example of culture is holidays. Example lang natin is Christmas. Some people not really celebrate Christmas kasi it's either bawal sa religion nila or hindi nila nakasanayan. Pero yung iba talagang religion is hindi sila nagsa-celebrate ng Christmas. Hence, all moral and ethical standard is valid, and there is no one standard that is better. Ayun nga, sabi nga ay lahat ng moral and ethical standard is okay. So, hindi natin dapat isipin na mas lamang or mas better tong culture na to, ganito, ganyan. Hindi. Pantay-pantay ang culture kasi iba't iba tayo or may iba't iba tayong uniqueness. Kaya, huwag natin ikukumpara yung culture ng iba sa culture natin.
Philosopher and university professor Dr. James Russell 1941-2003 in his book The Elements of Moral Philosophy laid out 5 claims of cultural relativism as to why right and wrong is only matter of cultural standard. Here are the 5 claims of cultural relativism. The first claim is different society have different moral code. So what is moral code? When we say moral code, is a set of rules or guidelines that a person or a group of people follow in order to live a life that's good and is heavily dependent upon a culture. And because we live in different society, we expected that we have different cultures, traditions, and beliefs. It means that we also have different moral codes according to a society where we belong. The second is the moral code society determines what is wrong and what is right and wrong. There is no longer standard considered better than others. It means that if the moral code of that society says that the action is right, therefore the action is right, at least within that only society. The third is there are no universal truths, meaning there is no absolute standard that can be used to judge one society code.
The moral code of particular society has no special status. It is but one among many. It is arrogant for one culture to judge another culture. This should be tolerance among cultures. So the moral code of a society determines what is right within that society. That is, if the moral code of a society says that a certain action is right, then that action is right at least within that society. The advantages and dangers of cultural relativism. Rachel's identified two positive we can learn from cultural relativism. Number one is it warns us from assuming that our preferences are the absolute rational standard. Number two, it teaches us to keep an open mind and to be more amenable in discovering the truth. So cultural relativism rightly warns us about the danger of assuming that all our preferences are based on some absolute rational standard, and it also has us keep an open mind regarding the practices of both our culture and the cultures of another societies.
Many of our practices are relevant only to our particular community. This implies our moral views of our reflection in society's prejudice. Cultural relativism makes us understand that what we think as true may actually be just the result of cultural conditioning. Cultural conditioning is a social process in which authority figures such as professors, politicians, religious leaders, peers, and the media define our cultural beliefs, values, ethical systems, and ultimately the way we perceive ourselves in the world. On the other hand, the dangers of cultural relativism is that we cannot call out society's practices that promote harm. First, if cultural relativism is true, then we should not condemn Hitler and the Nazis did against Jews, apartheid in South Africa, or any form of maltreatment, damage, injury, or destruction that one community inflicts upon anyone or anything. This explains it will vary from culture to culture, so every judgment about right or wrong is a product of society.
Number two, we cannot justifiably criticize our own culture harmful practices. It tells here that you need to decide or check your action is in line with all standards of your society. Huwag mong pintasan ang kultura ng iba. Instead, we should try to understand cultural practices of other groups. We can use cultural relativism approach. Number 3, the idea of social progress becomes doubtful. This is a challenge in cultural relativism. Some says cultural relativism is creating chaos. Is it because people who can follow their own moral code, because there is no wrong or right, would be allowed to pursue any life they preferred under the cultural relativism? For example, if a person has seeing stealing as a right to do, he could steal what he wants instead of purchasing it. It also some says that cultural relativism is creating a system where only the strongest can survive.
Cultural relativism is the ability to understand a culture on its own terms and not to make judgments using the standards of one's own culture. The goal of this is promote understanding of cultural practices that are not typically part of one's own culture. So, yung cultural relativism is ideya siya na yung mga beliefs and values sa isang society ay kailangan nating maintindihan and not be judged against the criteria of another. Using the perspective of cultural relativism leads to the view that no one culture is superior than another culture when compared to systems of morality, law, and politics. So, dito sa cultural relativism is in-encourage nito na magkaroon ng respeto sa ibang kultura at paniniwala ng iba.
Next is in concept. It is a concept that cultural norms and values derive the meaning within a specific social context. This is also based on the idea that there is no absolute standard of good or evil. Therefore, every decision and judgment of that is right, what is right and wrong, it is individually decided in each society. So, the concept of cultural norms and values are derived or depend on a specific social context where we belong, wherein what the society cultural norms and values, that's what is right and wrong for them. And then because of the idea that there is no absolute standard of what is good and evil, therefore it means the decisions and judgment of the society on what is right and wrong, that's what people will believe within that society. Next is, in a holistic understanding of the term cultural relativism, it tries to promote the understanding of cultural practices that are unfamiliar to others cultural, such as eating, genocide, or genital cutting. Cultural relativism is giving respect to other cultural practices that are unfamiliar to us, and with cultural relativism will help to understanding for not judging other cultural practices, like what they do is eating insects and genital cutting and other different cultures that they have, because there is some people that make fun of it and discusses other cultures that they have, so we must give them respect what they have.
There are two different categories of cultural relativism. The number one is absolute. It says that whatever goes on in a particular culture must not be questioned or changed, because it would be ethnocentric to question any behavior or idea anywhere. Ethnocentric means characterized by or based on the attitude of one's group, or it also judging other groups as inferior to one's own. Number two is critical. It says that some of what goes on in a particular culture can be questioned or changed, because dahil sa ideya ng isang hanay ng universal na karapatang pantao.
Met this girl down by the vine, had long 10 legs